Hello, friends. Today is the day of Epiphany, January 6th. And you know what Epiphany celebrates, of course, the visit of the Magi to Jesus. It's a beautiful story. The Magi come from the east. They're looking for the one who would be king of the Jews. They go to Jerusalem and they consult with Herod. Herod is quite startled by the news of the King of the Jews, and he consults his scribes and chief priests, and they say that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, so he sends them on to Bethlehem and then tells the Magi to let him know when they find him. The Magi journey to Bethlehem. They find Jesus. And upon entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. And then opening their treasure chest, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. And then an angel appears to Joseph, tells him to get out of Bethlehem and go to Egypt, so he flees. And then in verse 16, when Herod saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old or under. Oh my. So we think of the story of Epiphany, the visit of the Magi, as such a beautiful, heartwarming story. At our Christmas Eve service, we love to watch the young people dressed up in their regalia coming in during the reading of that scripture and the singing of We Three Kings. But then we don't pay much attention to this other part of the story. It's such a wonderful story, but there embedded in it is this tragedy that Herod sends word to kill the children under 2 years old, which is meant, I think, by Matthew to link Herod with Pharaoh, and therefore to link Jesus with Moses, the deliverer in the same mold as Moses. But it should also speak to us of the nature of power, right? Humans will resort to incredibly evil actions to acquire and to preserve power. And that's what the story of Pharaoh reminds us of. That's what the story of Herod reminds us of. We've come to trust our government with its constitutional checks and balances and its reliance on the rule of law, which was shaped in part, of course, by a theological understanding of human sin. We've come to rely on these governmental processes and structures to protect us from extreme abuses of power in this country. That trust has been tested these past 4 years and was certainly shattered today with the events at the White House. Mobs entering the Capitol trying to overturn an election with the endorsement and encouragement of a sitting president. Congressmen and congresswomen inside the chamber trying to also overturn the will of the people in an election. Wow, most of us thought we'd never see anything like this. I didn't even know this was all going on until about 2 or 3 o'clock today. I was calling some people I hadn't seen in a while in the church, and I called a woman, and she was terribly upset and emotional, and I wondered, well, what's happening? And she said, "Aren't you watching the news?" And she described to me what was happening. And as I made some other calls, it was, the emotion was, disbelief and sadness and anger and pessimism about the future of our democracy based on what folks were witnessing today. But as a people of faith, we are immersed in these stories that remind us of what people are capable of when they pursue power. And these stories should buoy us in hope and strengthen our resolve to pursue justice and peace, and to strengthen these structures of accountability and checks and balances to make sure power cannot be abused. I hope today's events are a wake-up call for our nation to thoroughly denounce white supremacy and Christian nationalism. As I looked at the pictures of those who were storming that Capitol, it looked to be overwhelmingly white men. These biblical stories remind us of what humans are capable of, but they also remind us that God is sovereign, and God's will for shalom will not be thwarted by hate, by bigotry, by lust for wealth and power. May God's peace be with you and with us as a nation this night and in the coming days. Peace be with you.